I'm Shai, this is Julia, and we're going to talk about the stuff we just heard. So let's just get to it.
Before diving into generosity optimization, we first wanted to understand how our clients in the gaming industry are distributing bonuses to your players. So we found that in our established markets, the UK, US, EU, and Brazil, approximately, another thing I'm holding, a laser pointer, $4.2 billion to your players in 2025. Now, to put this into perspective, the monthly bonus to deposit ratio on average was about 20%, well, nearly 20%. This means that for every $5 that your customers are depositing, you give $1 back. Now, this takes me to our third most shocking figure yet. We also found that about $2.1 billion were given to your over-bonused players. The overarching narrative of these three key figures illustrates to us that we are currently in an extremely generous industry in terms of bonusing. But the good news is, as much as this data shows us what the problem is, we can leverage it in the same way to size the opportunity and to create solutions moving forward. If the figures that I've just showed you in the last slide were the symptoms of the problem, here we're going to be diagnosing it. So let's take a look at who is actually receiving these said bonuses. When we segment our customers by their average monthly bonus to deposit ratio, we see two clear groups appear. First, your healthy customers. These are your players with an average bonus to deposit ratio of 0 to 25%. Now, they take up about 77% of your player base, but they only receive 33% of your total bonus budget. And when we look at their average monthly revenue, it's about $204. Now let's take a look at that second group, your over-bonused customers. These are your players with an average monthly bonus to deposit ratio of 100 or more %. So that means they're actually receiving more bonuses than they're actually depositing. They take up just 10% of your player base. But, get this, they receive 46% of the total bonus budget. That's nearly 50% of your overall budget last year. And when we look at their average monthly net revenue, well, it's negative. That's negative $11 per player. I see a few phones here. I feel like I'm at a concert. Appreciate it. Hope we didn't get the beginning.
Can do some dancing here.
Okay, back on track. You see that they have a negative monthly net revenue. Now, this story tells us here that there is a significant leakage coming from a very small proportion of your overall player base. This is what we refer to as the generosity gap. What we're seeing is an overspending on your least profitable players while underfunding the 77% that actually drive your business. What you're essentially doing at the extreme is that you're giving your least profitable players, your over-bonus players, money to take that away, while you're leaving that 77% vulnerable to competitors that might just give them a fraction of more attention. So what can we do with this image? Well, we can redistribute generosity, but not by reducing the amount, but by reallocating it. So when we do this, two things happen. First, we see that the budget shifts more towards your healthy customers, your high value, your core customers. And in this example, we've increased the budget from 33% to 50%. at the same time, you're reducing your budget that goes to the over-bonus customers from 46 to 29. The second thing that happens, we can see here that your revenue profile improves dramatically. The average monthly net revenue of your healthy customers goes from $204 to $225 on average. That's an increase of over $20 per player. And remember that healthy customers make up over 3/4 of your player base. So imagine the impact that this has on your business. The issue here isn't actually about generosity. It's about the allocation of it. And that's the problem we want to help you solve today. We want you to leverage the right capabilities of Optimove and choose the right strategy in order to target the right customer at the right time with the right offer. Shai.
Thank you, Julia. So luckily, Optimove to the rescue. I'm going to talk about a short framework or how to think about allocating your generosity dollars in a more thoughtful way. And we'll also have a short demo of how this looks like in the actual system. So yesterday on main stage, I presented a framework of 4 steps of decisioning. This is pretty similar to that, but now we're looking at it from the prism of optimizing generosity. So we still have the kind of clear steps in the way. Now, the first step starts with allocating the budget, right? This is something that we all physically do, right? Before we even talk about segmentation and campaigning and deciding which player gets which bonus, we have an overarching budget allocation. That gives us context for the next type of decisions that we need to make. The first one would be to select the audience, right? Who are we going to target as part of this strategy of promotional strategy? Is it one group? Is it segmenting to multiple groups? And we'll look at a few examples of how you can thoughtfully segment your player base and inform your promotional strategy. Once we have that set in place, right, we have different audiences, different target groups with different contexts of why and what's the purpose of offering them promotions. Then we can decide for each one what is the most appropriate offer type and the intensity. Right? Is it a deposit match? And if so, how aggressive it is? Is it a free bet? If so, how aggressive it is? Is it a bonus? Is it a free spin? Is it a discount? Right? So is it a non-monetary kind of promotion? We talked about Optimove Gamify and the ability to provide non-monetary incentives to players. Some players might value a badge or some experience points or loyalty points or diamonds or whatever it might be over a $5 bonus, right? Some will tick that way, some will tick that way. And this is part of the decision that we need to make. What is the offer type and how aggressive it is per player? Then we can squeeze the lemon a little bit more, right? We can still calculate personalized reward values per player. So if I decided that I'm going to offer a medium aggressiveness deposit match to a segment of players, what does medium aggressiveness looks like, right? Can we use every player's own data to calculate the exact reward value for them and make it more personalized and more optimized for their experience? Because some players will see $20 as okay, and some will think that $20 is a lot, and some would think that $20 is nonsense because they're high rollers. So how do we calculate the right amount per player? And in the end, the result should be an optimized offer per player, per campaign, and for your entire marketing plan.
Okay. In order to target the right customers, we must be able to segment them into 3 key archetypes. First, we have your bonus or promotion abusers. Second, you have your core customers. And third, your VIPs. First, it is crucial that you have the right attributes to actually be able to allocate customers towards these archetypes. And in case you don't already, and that you're interested, the professional services team can definitely create this for you. But first, why do we actually need to differentiate between these 3 groups? Well, simply put, they each have their own goals and their own treatment strategies. So let's dive in. First, your bonus or promotion abusers. The goal for this group is to prevent the leakage. And how do we treat them? We manage this group by implementing bonus cooling off periods, adding friction to make it more difficult for these players to take advantage of the bonuses, like enforcing stricter eligibility rules. We want to cap bonus amounts and frequency, and sometimes we want to shift to non-monetary engagements to replace those cash incentives. And the same principle applies to e-commerce. What not to do. So we want to avoid chasing short-term activity here with additional bonuses, because this only reinforces that existing dependency. Now, looking ahead, this summer will feature the largest global sporting event that occurs every 4 years, the World Cup. During these major tournaments, we see that it tends to attract this opportunistic behavior we see with this group. If promotional generosity increases without the proper controls in place, this will be, I guarantee, the first group that will take advantage of it. So this is why we strongly recommend that you have a bonus abuser or promotion abuser detection model ahead of the tournament start this summer. Moving on to our core customers, this is where incremental growth occurs. Our core customers respond best to smaller, more targeted incentives, rather than those large generic bonuses. We want, for core customers, their bonuses to be linked to very specific actions that we want to encourage out of them, like placing a second deposit or cross-selling from sports to gaming. Lower risk offers like free spins or smaller rewards can also work really well in terms of continuing to stimulate this engagement from core customers. And again, the same principle applies to e-commerce. So instead of those large one-off discounts, we want to enforce or encourage specific actions like making a second purchase or adding complementary products to their basket. What we want to avoid. We want to avoid over-incentivizing core customers. This is because if customers are constantly receiving these promotions, they can quickly start to expect an incentive every single time they engage. And that will only encourage them to develop this behavior of dependency, just like we see with our first group. Another common mistake that we do see clients make with core customers is simply ignoring them, expecting that they remain active without any incentives at all. And that's a very critical mistake that you can make in a competitive industry like the gaming one. During the World Cup, we do expect new casual customers to come or to reactivate, and we have to treat them exactly like our core customers. We want to, instead of offer them large generic discounts, for the promotions to encourage specific actions that will indicate to us that they will generate long-term value, not just that is isolated or coming from this one event. And again, the same principle applies to e-commerce. So if we take the Black Friday event as an example, during Black Friday, we expect many customers to make their first purchase or their first purchase in a very long time. But we want to encourage very specific actions from these customers that will indicate to us they will generate that long-term value. So that's things like category discovery, repeat purchases, or cross-selling as well. This is exactly how event-driven traffic can translate into sustainable long-term value. Our last group, the VIPs. Our VIPs are a little bit different. They have a different goal. We want to protect and stabilize their value. For this, we want to give VIPs what they need. More predictable, more consistent generosity, higher personalization of their communications, and sometimes value protection mechanisms. We want to avoid forcing short-term activity for our VIPs because VIP loyalty is based on two things, trust and loyalty, not just the bonus size. Okay, as you're snapping pictures, and I do encourage that's okay. I do encourage that you do, but just get my good side on this side. I just want to recap this slide really quickly. It is very important that you do differentiate between these two groups because if you don't, generosity, and we have seen this, it becomes quickly very, very wasteful for your business. But if you are able to even simply segment customers into these three groups, generosity can quickly become one of your most powerful growth engines. Okay, hope everyone got a picture of that last slide. Moving on, now that we understand how to segment or where to segment these customers, the next question here is when to invest. Because generosity optimization is not just about the who, but also about the timing. There are 3 key lifecycle stages where bonuses can have the strongest impact. So first, when a customer is new. Second, when a customer is active, but their activity begins to slow down. And third, when a customer has churned. So let's take this one by one. Our new customers. At this stage, we want to focus on investing based on future potential. Not all of your new customers are going to generate value in the long run. So the objective here is to be able to distinguish those new customers who do. This is where Optimove's future value model and top spender probability models come into play. Together, these 2 models will help us predict the likelihood of these new customers to become those high-value players in the long run. Okay, with the insights from these 2 models, we can then prioritize or reallocate our resources more effectively. For our higher or relatively higher value or potential players here, we can focus on sending them stronger incentives to unlock that potential. For our lower value or lower potential players in the gray boxes there, we can send them more controlled investments so that they can activate. Our active customers. Okay. This is where the objective begins to shift from acquisition to protecting and stabilizing value. So the questions here are actually around, well, is this customer at risk of churning? And what is their expected revenue? Again, Optimove offers 2 models to support this. Our future value model once more, and our risk of churn model. While the future value model predicts the future monetary value of a customer in your business, the risk of churn model has those early detection signals that will indicate to you that a customer's activity will slow down and that they'll eventually churn. With these 2 models, again, we can intervene at the right moment. We can prioritize those higher value customers that are showing us signals that they may potentially churn. And for those lower value customers in these 2 bottom boxes, we can focus on more cost-efficient actions rather than aggressive spending. Lastly, our churned customers. Once the customer has churned, the question you should be asking is it actually worth reinvesting to get them back? Not all of your churned customers should receive a reactivation incentive. Here again, we have 2 models from Optimove, the future value model and the reactivation rate model. Once more, the future value model predicts that future monetary value of a customer if they return, and the reactivation rate model looks at the likelihood of a churned customer returning. So here, with those insights, we can then prioritize reinvestments where they actually make the most sense. So we can prioritize those relatively higher value customers and also want to limit the actual spending of these bottom 2 boxes. So those are your customers who may not reactivate at all, or they simply don't have a high enough future value that can actually justify our efforts to reactivate them. Across 3 of these life cycle stages or stages of a customer, the principle here is the same. We want to use the right or most relevant Optimove predictive models so that we ensure bonuses aren't just distributed broadly, but that they're actually deployed where they can make the most impact.
Okay, thank you, Julia. Before we dive into the demo, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I'm going to show in the demo. So the same framework this that we saw before, right? We allocate the budget, we determine the audiences and the target groups, then we let the system make smart choices on offer type and intensity, and then calculate the last mile reward value to optimize your offers. So we're going to show how, with Optimove and its different tools, you can define budgets either per customer or per promo or per period of time to cap budgets. how you can build target groups like Julia just shared with us with the right predictive models and the right segmentation criteria, how we can run offer decisioning on A-B or A-B-C-D type of offer campaigns, how we can calculate personalized rewards using OptiPromo, or its new name, Optimove Promotions, to use tiering and formulas based on your rich data to calculate the last mile reward. And it's time for demo. They told me, don't go to this slide, it's ugly. Tell us to switch your laptop. I forgot, sorry about that, but here we go. All right, let me just put my glasses on, because otherwise I cannot see anything. All right, so we're going to start with budgets, right? So in Optimove, under OptiPromo, you have promotions. Every promotion these could be integrated from your existing promo engine to pull the list of existing promos that you have in your system, or you can define them here. Anyway, for each promo, you can define budgets. So in this example, for example, you can see we are 41% through our monthly budget of $20,000 or euro, or whatever it is. Now, if you want to see how it looks like, when we define a promo in Optimove, there are two different types of budgets that we can choose. Right now, we have the budget of the actual rewards, right? In this case, it's a deposit matchup, and we are capping it at monthly 20,000. It could be 200,000, it could be 2 million, whatever you want. We can add more filters, right? We can have a daily limit of 10,000 in general, right? We can have a lifetime limit of 500,000, right? So this is on the actual promo in aggregate. We can also define a per customer limit, right? Every customer gets no more than 500, no matter what. We can also define how many customers can enjoy this promo. So that's audience capping. We can say that this specific promo, no more than 500 customers per day are eligible to it. So no matter what the target group size is, no matter what the campaign audience and decisioning are made, we are capping at 500. Which 500? It could be random, or it could be an advanced allocation, where you can decide that we are based on a specific customer attribute. For example, their future value. If I can type while I speak, sorry, future value score, right? So if their future value score is high, then the highest they're the first one they're going to enjoy this bonus or this promo. And once we hit 500, no matter what the audience size is in the campaign, they don't get any more, right? So this is a way for us to, again, talking about my talk track from yesterday, we see people investing a ton of time in making sure that their target group sizes are not too big or not too small, because that's the way to control budget leakage. This is a more intelligent way to do that, and also an easier way to do that. You don't have to play around with exclusion criteria in the target groups that may look like some cap today, but who knows next week how many customers in a specific situation you might have. This is a way to say, no matter what the group size is, no more than 500 people per day or 5,000 per week or whatever it is are going to get this specific promo. So this is the various way we have to define budgets and control budgets. Now, yes, let's discard the changes. Now let's quickly jump to target groups and see a few examples of what Julia showed us just a moment ago. So I pre-prepared a few of them, right? Very easily you can create those groups that Julia just mentioned, those bonus abusers, those core players, those VIP strategies, right? The more data that you have in Optimove, and most of you have a lot of data in Optimove, the easier it gets, right? So just as an example, let's say we have a core player and we have a context of cross-sell, sports to gaming, right? So I can build all kinds of attributes. These are not bonus abusers, they're not VIPs, they're active, and they haven't had any gaming history, only sports. Then I can also enrich this with all kinds of predictive models like Julia just mentioned. Are they a high risk of churn? Are they a high future value? Or if these are rather new players or new customers, are they likely to become top spenders or not, right? We know, especially in the gaming industry, but not only, there could be a very fast track between a new customer and a VIP. And it could be very quickly, and we want to treat those potential VIPs before they actually qualify and cross the threshold. This is a great predictive model to help you inform that strategy. So with 2 clicks of a button, and these are all out-of-the-box models coming from Optimove's, enjoying our data science teams, they don't compete with yours. If you have your own internal models, you can easily fit them into Optimove as customer attributes and use them just as easily as I showed you. If you don't, these are out of the box, and because we are sitting on top of a very rich context of data, those tend to be very accurate. So, as we've seen here, you can build all these target groups and all of these audiences based on the exact framework that Julia just shared before. Copy just as is, right? Okay, now we have audiences. Let's say every target group has some campaign or a journey attached to it. Now let's look at an example of a stream. Let me quickly find the right one. There we go. And this is obviously an example. Let me do this and also do that. All right, there we go. This is obviously just an example, right? This is a post-reactivation journey, right? So these are customers that used to be churned customers, reactivated them, and then we know that there is a good chance that they will churn again. We see that a lot of behavior, right? You're reactivating churned customers, and then they slip back into churn state. Or you acquire new customers, and then they lose them, and then you reacquire them again with high generosity for acquisition. We see that pattern over and over again, and it contributes to this waste that Julia alluded to before. So in this example, right, let's assume that our entry criteria is the target group of these customers that were recently reactivated but are high risk of churn. So we can have all kinds of treatments, right? I won't go into all of these details. I do want to focus on one thing, right? At some point, you can split your journey or your stream based on the likelihood to churn again, or based on likelihood to become top spender in another case, or based on their amount of future value, right? And then, this is where it gets interesting. Now we say, not all customers should be treated with the same incentives, right? This is where we are at kind of offer decisioning and offer type and intensity level. We've done all of our segmentation based on the framework we've seen. We've set our budgets based on what I just showed you. Now comes the time to optimize the actual engagement. So we have this group of customers that reach this state. Before, in the past, we would tend to have like a flat promotion or a bonus to these customers. What we are suggesting here is a way to let AI optimize this for you. In our example here, I chose 4 different offers that we can offer to this group of customers. The first one could be an aggressive deposit matchup. The second one would be a medium deposit matchup. The third one would be a low deposit matchup. And the fourth one would be a non-monetary incentive at all, right? Earning a badge. As an example, this is how like an email of that could look like, right? It's just a very simple example. Obviously, it's a demo environment here. But obviously, this can be designed in a very appealing way. It's very easy to do these things, right? These aggressive, medium, low, and badge, they are all attached to the actual promo IDs that you have in your own systems and are synced into Optimove promotions that we saw 5 minutes ago. So you just select from the dropdown which promotion am I going to give to these players or customers based on the list that I showed you before. So this is the aggressive one. Once you do that, the magic starts happening because offer decisioning, formerly called self-optimizing campaign, kicks in. What does it do? You have an audience of people that recently reactivated, but they are high risk of churn. It's a quite segmented group of customers, but it's still quite diverse, right? You have different age groups, different territories, different product categories, different betting preferences, different patterns, right? The diverse the group is, it means that every customer may respond slightly different to different type of offers. What offer decisioning agent is doing is identifying all of these little sub-segments of your audience and matching the right offer to them. So it could be that in this case, some customers will be allocated with the aggressive offer, some with the medium offer, some with the low, and a few might respond better to a badge. And some could be undetermined because the AI is still figuring that out. The more recurrence this campaign has, and the more difference between the offers we have, the more meat the AI has to play with, right? And determine the actual result. This, like I mentioned in those of you who were in my Q&A session just an hour ago, this is the easiest way to tap into Optimove AI and optimization. Because all you have to do is switch a button and allocate promotions and offers that you probably already have in your system. Now, I wanted to say that one of the powerful things about offer decisioning that it's continuously optimizing over time. Like I mentioned before, I moved to the US about 2.5 years ago from Israel. There is no American football in Israel. Nobody knows anything about that. When I moved to the US, that's the main sport, right? Now, then I realized that the NFL season is pretty short. It starts in September, ends in February, very few games. Because it's winter, it's cold, and players get injured. That's how I learned it, right? So they cannot sustain a long season. And because the NFL is like the most popular sports, the sports books in the United States tend to have a lot of player engagement and a lot of customer engagement during this short season. But then, as soon as that season ends, and I don't know what else, baseball or hockey or whatever it is that's available out there, is less appealing to many of the customers, they just disappear, only to reappear again 6 or 7 months later when the next NFL season begins, and then you reacquire the same customers again and again with these huge offers that we see. Now, self-optimizing campaign can detect all of these behaviors in real time. So as during NFL season, the system will identify that players are engaging even with little incentives. So it will optimize the least aggressive offers to them while they keep engaging anyway. But comes February and March, and we see a drop in engagement. So the players aren't responding to these low offers. The system will automatically try a different offer for them. So they might enjoy a higher generosity during the off-season. And then when the NFL season comes again, this behavior changes. So this is not set in stone. This is changes with seasonality, with changes in your product assortment, with changes in player behavior, fatigue, whatever it might be. It's very powerful. Okay, so now we determined that some players should get aggressive offers and some players should get medium or low or badges. Now, what does an aggressive offer mean? How much money are they getting? This is again where we go to Optimove Promotions. And see how it looks like. So here I have the medium offer and the aggressive offer. Let's look at them for a moment. When you define a promo inside of Optimove Promotions, either you create it from scratch or you import it or sync it from an existing promo engine, you can enrich it with data and with calculations. So I'll choose a simple example. It could be much more comprehensive than that, but we don't have much time. So we talked about a deposit matchup. This is the aggressive deposit matchup. And aggressive might mean that every player gets 50% of their deposit amount that they just made, right? It could be a real-time event of the actual deposit that they just made, or it could be based on whatever, right? It could be based on their average bet amount, lifetime, right? Very personalized. So this is the aggressive offer. Same way, I can do the medium offer, and the medium offer would be, in our example, 25% of their deposit amount. And the low offer would be 10%, and so on and so forth. Now it means that aggressive doesn't mean one number. It means that every player gets the level of aggressiveness that matches their behavior, which is more personalized and more thoughtful of how we interact with our customers. So, with that, let's go back to presentation mode and wrap it up. A few takeaways. All right. We talked about who to target, how to target them, and when to target them. We talked about defining objectives. We talked about defining budgets and budgets for promotions. So we want to build different promo strategies for different core groups of customers: bonus abusers, core players, VIPs. How are we interacting with them? We talked about testing and experimenting with different offer types and different offer strengths to enhance the incremental value that we're getting. Now, I forgot to mention, because I was not practicing enough, is that when we test these different offers, aggressive, medium, low, it's very important to define the KPI we're optimizing for, right? Are we optimizing for gross revenue, or are we optimizing for net revenue? The system will make very different choices there. If we were to optimize for gross revenue, it is likely that more people will get the more aggressive offers, because we just want to encourage deposits or bets or purchases. But if we're optimizing for net revenue, then the system does the opposite. It tries to find the least amount of offer aggressiveness that the player will bite into and saving us profits. This KPI is easily defined in Optimove, in the campaign level or on the stream level, and it informs all of these decisioning agents. So this enhances the incrementality of whichever KPI we chose to do. And after we defined the core groups, we defined the different offer types, we experimented with offer types and levels of aggressiveness, then comes the last mile of personalizing the actual reward value. And we want to use the data, the rich data that we have, to make it more personalized and more thoughtful, because each player defines aggressiveness and appropriateness based on their own pattern behaviors. Optimove Promotions give you the power to do that and use all of your rich data to personalize the last mile reward. And this is our catchphrase, all right? The most generous brands are not the ones who give the most, are the ones who understand their players the best. And this ties back to what Julia started with. Optimizing generosity doesn't necessarily mean that you have to spend less. It means that you need to reallocate your existing budget more thoughtfully to improve your customer experience and also improve your business results. And with that, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.